Hey guys, welcome to Rocket Punch. Imagine, if you will, it's 1975, and you go into the drugstore and see a rack of fantasy pulp novels. You select one of the books, and from the cover, you can imagine inside are barbarians, cursed swords, demonic emperors, and half-naked warriors fighting impossible odds. Well, if that sounds like something you would like to play, then perhaps you would like to try out today's game. Black Sword Hack! Now hurry up and grab your chainmail bikini as we take a look inside. Follow me!
Before we had superhero fantasy about dwarves baking bread and demonic tieflings singing poetry for some reason, we had barbarians, thieves, and mercenaries who fought demonic doomed sorcerers. So, if you ever wanted to play Conan, Elric, my favorite death dealer, or even Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, let me show you today's book. That's right, Black Sword Hack, a game by Kobayashi from the Merry Mushmen. Now, on the back, you can see this is no fantasy bakery simulator. No, Black Sword Hack. Before the rings had a lord, fantasy had other heroes. Thieves, gladiators, and kings. Law and chaos were battling over human souls, and heroes rose and fell. Build a world, watch it burn. Sounds like a positive message to me. All right, let's get inside this book right away. There is no truth but that of eternal struggle by Michael Moorcock. So we have Black Sword Hack by the Merry Mushmen, written by Kobayashi. It's some cool art. You got this nice little forward here. You got some other cool stuff. Got some death skulls. Got this dude who is basically Elric with the serial numbers filed off. You got your little table of contents there. And you got your basic rules. So it goes over turns. You all know that. The attribute test. So this is a roll under game system, which I think works well for solo. And there's some solo information in the back in the appendix. So roll a 1 is critical success. Roll a 20 is a failure. You got your basic advantage, disadvantage. And here you got something interesting because this takes from the Black Hack, which is another game by David Black. And it had the usage die in there for arrows and things like that. Well, this one uses the usage die in a little bit of a different mechanic. It's kind of interesting. So a usage die, if you're not sure about it, you basically get your die. Say it starts with a D6. Every time you use that thing, you'll roll. And anytime it's a 1 or 2, it's going to step down. So it'll be a D4. And then if you get a 1 or 2 on that, it goes away. Well, in here, instead of tracking arrows and things, which it says that's silly, it shouldn't be for that. Usage die is basically on boons and things. So you might be given a boon or some kind of favor from maybe another NPC or something. And anytime you call on that favor, you're going to use that favor. So you're going to roll whatever usage it is. As I just said, a D6 starting and you roll the 1 or 2 and it goes down. You're going to basically be able to call on that favor as many times. And that is really cool that it's basically a calling on a favor mechanic. So it's not an indefinite use of that favor. I kind of like that. Maybe you save the guard from something, so he kind of says, hey, you can call me on some favors whenever you need. But eventually they're going to say, hey, I can't give you any favors anymore. Distance in here, that kind of thing. Perception is intelligence test. And then you have your doom die, which is another interesting mechanic in this book. So it's another type of usage die that you can roll and kind of get these interesting things. So, for example, you can take the same action twice during combat. You can use a gift that requires it and gives a critical failure on an attribute test, which means anytime you roll a crit failure, a 20, you're going to have to roll on the Doom die, and it's going to basically have an opportunity for Doom to come and pay a visit to you. And then you get to reset this die to the maximum value after the character has a long rest. You're all going to start with a D6 Doom die. So what happens when the Doom die is depleted? The character is considered doomed. All their attribute tests and damage rolls are made with disadvantage until the character can take a long rest. So that's really interesting. Kind of gives a little narrative spice to it. Combat initiative is just a wisdom test, so you got to roll under your wisdom. Critical success means you get 3 actions instead of 2. On a crit fail, you only get 1 action, so you might only be able to move. So attacking, you're going to use a melee weapon, make a strength test, range weapon, dex test. You know the drill. Same thing as this is player facing. You're going to be making all the rolls. The gym is just going to be reffing, basically, which I really like. You're going to parry. So if there's some kind of melee attack, you're going to be able to parry and make a strength test. If it's an arrow coming at you, you're going to make a dex test. What's also interesting here is that there's a threat level. If an opponent's level is higher than the character's level, the player adds a difference between the 2 levels to the d20, making attribute tests to attack. So it's going to become even harder if you're fighting some Snake Lord and you're only a level 1. So that's going to add possible difficulty to your d20 roll. In here, all weapons cause the same damage, a d6, and your unarmed damage is a d4. Some backgrounds allow you to change that, and then armor is going to be absorption armor. And any 2-handed weapons are going to give you advantage to your attack roll. Then it kind of has some additional information on attack effects. So if you want to try one of these, you have to declare it. Then you're going to have to roll your save and make a doom roll. So what you can do is you can do break and break your opponent's weapon or a piece of equipment. Brutal, you can add the doom die's results to damage. You can disarm. You can entangle. Flurry, inflict regular damage, immediately get an additional attack. Pin down. Sacrifice, you get double damage, but your weapon breaks. You can shove, sweep, and you can be vicious. Inflict regular and ongoing damage at a usage die 4. So basically, you can make them bloody, sever a limb maybe, and they just keep bleeding out. So that's cool, and then it becomes a d4 usage die. When you hit 0, you don't immediately die, but you can only kind of crawl around. What you'll be is helpless, and then you'll roll a d6 once you get to a safe place. So if you roll a 1, you're just scratched, you're good to go, but you have a new scar. You might be missed. One piece of random equipment is destroyed. They just miss you and damage the equipment. Might be impaired, disadvantage on dex tests, injured, disadvantage on attribute tests. Butchered, you lose 1 point of some attribute, strength or dex permanently, or killed on a 6. So it's pretty cool. So any surviving character results 1 to 5, you immediately get d4 HP back. For recovery, you're going to be able to take a short rest or a long rest. Short rest can be taken anywhere, lasts about an hour. You recover your con score rounded down. And you can only take it 1 time. Long rest can be taken in a safe environment, lasts 6 hours, and you get all your HP back. Doom dice are fully restored, and some backgrounds get gifts, and those are restored as well. Gives a little combat example, but that's basically everything. Now, character creation, that's pretty cool. Like this little funky art here. You have your standard strength, dex, con, intelligence, wisdom, charisma, and what those are used for. Now, rolling attributes, you're going to be pretty much in the middle because you're going to roll 2d6 in order, but you're going to have this range. So because you're rolling 2d6, you're going to get basically 6 to 9. So you're going to be somewhere between the 10 to 11 on most stats and a couple outliers. And there are no bonuses, so it's all just how well you can roll under. Now in here, you're going to pick a couple different origins, either a barbarian origin, a civilized, or decadent. So if you're a barbarian, you get to be a giant naked smurf dude with a beard. And what happens is you can roll or choose one of these. So a barbarian, your character was born in a slave camp aboard a long ship filled with northern raiders. Civilized origin, character was born in a military academy where your parents were teaching in a dilapidated manor. Or a decadent origin, in the servants' quarters of a vampire's tower, or in a hurricane summoned by your mother. So the origins don't really do much. I mean, maybe your GM might... you might be able to beg your GM to allow maybe a bonus or a boon to roll something if it kind of plays into that. But it's just for flavor. Now you're going to get your backgrounds. So what you chose as your origin or rolled, you can do a D3 roll. If you're a barbarian, civilized, or decadent, you're going to get 3 backgrounds from here. It kind of doesn't make sense calling them backgrounds, but they're kind of like traits. So you're going to have to pick 2 tied to your origin, and then you can choose one of anything. So as a barbarian, you could get berserker, chieftain, herbalist, raider. Civilized is a bodyguard, bookworm, diplomat. Decadent, you could be an assassin, a changeling, or a warlock. And then you just roll your hit points, which are equal to your con score. You get a UD6 doom die, and you get your weapon and unarmed damage. So if you're a barbarian, one of the traits is you can do an unarmed damage of a D6, same as your weapon damage. And then you get some equipment. You get different coinage based on your background, and then some languages are here. And then that's it for your character. So very quick. So when you die, it takes 2 seconds to build a new one. And then at the beginning of each adventure, you lose coins equal to your con. This represents their daily expenses between 2 adventures. If your character couldn't or wouldn't pay, they can either have taken a job or loan. So you get to roll here. Who lent you the money? A noble, a painter, a mercenary? Which job did you accept? It could be like follow a wanted thief or hurt a famous poet. Oh yeah, that sounds like something I would do. And then in here, prices are kind of variable. So you got D6 times 10, and D6 times 100 coins. So it's kind of able for the ref to kind of pick different prices for things. So, it depends on the town. If it's a city or a little town, prices will be different. You got some poisons and drugs. Some weapons in here, as it said, all weapons do a D6. So you just have barbarian weapons. So a bone bow does as much as, a dagger. But a bone bow is like 2-handed, so you get to roll advantage. You got warhammer, you got a pilgrim's staff, you got a crossbow, razor whip. Kind of depends on what you roll up. Your armor and shields, you got light gives you 1 protection, and that's just how much it absorbs. So it could be 1, 2, or 3. Then experience is kind of interesting. Each time you survive an adventure, you gain a story. Write down the title of the adventure on your character sheet or make one up. Characters gain a level once they have completed the number of stories equal to their current level. So like level 1, it could be Slayer of Warlocks, something like that. So some kind of named something you get. And then each time you get, say 2 stories, then I'm going to be able to get a +1 attribute and +1 HP. Maximum score is 18. So you're just going to basically be able to gain a +1 on an attribute and a +1 on your HP. Now, depending on your patron or maybe God or something, you might be bestowed a gift. So you could get gifts of balance, gifts of chaos, gifts of law. So you might get bloodlust, upgrade your damage die by 1 die. Riddle of steel, one of your weapons now inflicts D12 damage, but if you get a 1 on its damage roll, it breaks. Things like that. You get some dark packs, so if you got one of the little wizardy, warlocky kind of backgrounds, you'll be able to pick, you could be picking a demonic pact. If you're a warlock, I believe. Yes, warlock background, you get demonic pacts. So you can invoke a demon power. Roll your doom die with disadvantage. If it isn't the first time you summon a demon today, it resets after a long rest. If the doom usage die is depleted while invoking a demon, roll the demon revenge table below. So you could be like, you cannot invoke this demon until next sunrise or steals one of your possessions. You can also find a new demon and make a pact. And then there's a whole bunch of demon types. And it has some cool demonic names under here. Same thing with Spirit Alliance, basically. That's if you're a shaman, you can get that. You can call a spirit, like ancestor spirits, animal lord spirits, disease spirit, fire spirit, forest spirits, a whole bunch more. And then each spirit is going to ask for something. Destroy another spirit. So it's kind of magic, but it's magic with a cost, which I do like. Sorcery is if you have the forbidden knowledge background. You can cast a spell. There's some basic kind of wicked spells like acid blood, darkness, curse of the mute, demon's breath, and a whole bunch more. Tongue thief. You can kind of find and learn new spells. And then you have fairy magic as if you're the changeling background. So you might get a cold iron weapon you inherited, stole, or otherwise came into possession of a legendary blade. It has a name and a legend, perhaps also a dark prophecy. It deals an extra D6 damage to all denizens of fairy. Twisted Science. I probably wouldn't use this in mine, but so if you wanted to do a little bit of a steampunky pulp, I guess, but I'm more into the dark, gritty fantasy. You can also, instead of a magic weapon, you have runic weapons. And it has these cool things like the blank of blank, the Warhammer of Eternal Soul. So that's pretty cool. And then each weapon has different properties. The weapon inflicts damage equal to one of the wielder's attributes, which give him a hint about the weapon's personality. So strength would be brutal, always calling for action, or the weapon seems to be made of bone or stone or coral. When an enemy is killed, the weapon devours their soul, turns their body to ashes, and the weapon can be found in the dead hand of a king on a plague ship in a buried necropolis. So it's pretty cool. You can very quickly kind of make a little adventure very easily with this to figure out where to find a runic weapon. You got a quick little bestiary here. They just show you real quick how to make kind of anything in your imagination. So a level 1 has 5 HP, and anytime you miss a parry or a dodge, it's just going to automatically do this static damage. So a level 1 has 5 HP, and it automatically inflicts 4 damage if you miss. Talks a little bit about morale, and that has a simple little bestiary here, not too much. You got some giant beasts, got some golems, a crazy monk with a cat of 6 tails, some living statues, mercenaries, primordials, Queen of the Dead, and serpent people. Can't have pulp fantasy without serpent people. Some skellybobs, and some cool sorcerers. And then whenever you find a dead body, you got your what do you find on a corpse. So you can see in here, there's a lot of cool tables that you could use in any kind of fantasy game. And also this little GM section on creating your own world. So it kind of has like law and chaos in your world. Is the main antagonist tied to the forces of law, or is the villain serving chaos? So you just roll on there and you can get some cool ideas. What do law's troops look like? Behold the mighty armies of chaos. So you get 2 sections to kind of see what the world is like. You get to define the struggle, take a blank map, and note the name and place as you see fit. So you can just take these names and just fill out a hex map or something and just throw these names in there. Roll the political situation and the attitude of the place. And then the end is nigh. What kind of natural disaster might occur, or what kind of plague is there, and some kind of cool political events that might be happening in the town. And then some adventure seeds on all of these little areas here. So Forbidden City, mercenary bands, enclaves, golden archipelagos, northern raiders, merchant league, flotsam kingdom, eastern principalities, some territories, iron horde, land of the black pyramids, gray spire's dominion. So you can see you have like a whole kind of quick rollable world that you could make. So it talks more about creating your city, the people, the power, the places, what the city is known for, some traveler's tales, ships of the sea. And here you got some adventure seeds. So you got some dark seeds. So here's some things you can just quickly run a game. You got a little adventure as well, Slayer of the Blood God, a little city, and then your appendices. So it talks a little bit about how to run the game, running NPCs and stuff. Some advice from some old pulp writers. And for the lone adventurer, so you have some cool ways to turn this into a solo game. So you have maybe a title, create your character, your world, your prologue. So kind of a nice in media res, like what's going on as we open the curtain. And here we have Appendix V. You can use your favorite sword and sorcery book as a plot generator, such as Beard Quest. That's awesome. Titania, Up in the City Citadel, Son of Orcus. I think those really look like some classic pulp books right there. Although my favorite was Death Dealer. I love that book. It's very corny, but it's fun. So you just open the book, turn to some random pages, and just pick words, and then just throw them in, and that's your plot generator. And then you can also use a lot of the oracle tables in the book itself. Then you got a Dark God oracle, and then some advice on using a friendly NPC in combat, so you don't die alone. And then in here you have a quick little campaign world, really. You have a world map and a little bit of information about what's going on in here. It almost looks very Thundar to me because you have the broken moon. And you have some cool little impossible creatures you can roll up. The monster's a hideous mix of ape and shark and spider and a classical statue. Even weirder, it's made of mother of pearl or acidic flesh. Then you also have some strange planes, so you can go into some weird mystical portals, as all pulp adventurers tend to do. And then you have a whole bunch of cool names, which you could really use in anything. So you have some names, based on kind of regions in here. Like you got some cool Norwegian nation names, Basque nation names, Mongol nations, and fantasy nations. And then you have some cool little nicknames down here, like the Giggling Killer or the Half Great. And you have a quick little glossary that goes over a couple things, and I skipped it. You have a really cool whole bunch of different character sheets. This big one, this half-page one, or a quarter-page one. So I hope you give Black Sword Hack a look. You can get the PDF over on their site. I did get the book and the PDF. Now, I will tell you, they have a really good company, but shipping is really slow, and you won't get a tracking information. But you can contact them, and they will reply. They will respond to your emails. But it is a very, very, very small company. So you just have to give them a little bit of leeway there. But if you email them, it'll be fine. Just I'm letting you know that shipping does take a little bit. But you will get it. You will get your book. And it came to me in great condition. So that's it. And until I see you next time, have a great Rocket Punch Day. Later.
Don't forget to rocket punch that like button. Make sure you subscribe. Click on that bell. Leave a comment below.